We light the candle to remind us of the light of reason, the source of meaning and wonder in the world. And just as we light the candle, let us remember how light is united in each one of us, as we were born curious and craving affection. We close the candle in the lantern to remind us that the light must be protected. Just as the flame can be fanned through the virtues of compassion and skepticism, so too can it be extinguished through fear and ignorance and neglect. Let each of us embody the light through the rigorous study and application
of skeptical values. Let us spread the light through our shining example and through education and outreach. And let us protect the light by standing up for science and reason wherever darkness gathers. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. Repeat with me. Be the light, spread the light, protect the light. Let it be so.
All right, awesome. Okay, welcome. Good morning, everybody. What a nice turnout. How nice to see you all. And some new faces and some familiar faces. This is great. So does anybody know how many we've done? 12 sanctuary, which sounds like this should be almost a 1 year anniversary. And we are getting close, but remember that we had 1 month where we did 2 services because we went to California, and so we had a service in California. That was November. We had a service here, and we had a service in California. So we are at 12. If you're doing the math, that means the next one will be our 12th. And then in August will be our 1 year anniversary. And we are working on a special event. Thank you, Sera. So stay tuned. We'll give you more details about that certainly next month as we get closer. We do have forms here that we'd like for you to fill out. Put your name and your address, because we'd actually like to send out invites, physical invites, for the 1 year anniversary, but we'll need your addresses to do that. So when you get a chance, we'll have a break here in the middle of the service, and you're welcome to go and add your name and your address. It must be getting close to summertime. We're in summer, right? Because we're like in birthday season. There's a lot of birthdays. I think Sera and Adam both had a birthday last Thursday. Israel, I know, has one coming up. Parisa, I know, just celebrated one. I know in my family we've got a lot coming up in August and September. Yep. So happy birthdays all around for those of you celebrating. And welcome to everyone following on the live stream. And Harvey, if you're watching, I hope. Every month our live streams have been getting better in terms of the production quality. We do broadcast them live as we hold these services, but then we leave them up so that you can go back and revisit them. Minor technical note, the last couple we've actually been taking down to make some minor edits, and then we put back up a more polished version. But so the versions that are online now are really nice. They have multiple angles. They put up the reflections as we read them, so you can actually follow along while you're watching the broadcast. So we've made it a really enjoyable experience. So if you're not ever able to make it, we encourage you, check in on the live stream. And big thanks to Adam and Sean, who are behind that. Sean is not here. He actually found us online, but he has become a really devoted and contributing member to the movement here. He's based in the Pennsylvania area, but he has been helping with the live stream. He helps remotely. So we owe a big debt of gratitude to Sean. And he might not even be available today. Usually he helps Adam remotely, but Sean had a family misfortune come up. His uncle passed away unexpectedly. So our thoughts are with Sean as he and his family are dealing with that. But we are extremely grateful for all that he does. Please follow and subscribe if you don't already. That goes for our YouTube, also for our Instagram. We have some members here wearing their Ministry of Skepticism shirts. So this is a new development. For anyone that knows anything about me, I just love making merch and t-shirts and things like that. And so these, if I do say so myself, look great. Thank you, Luis. That looks great. But so the reason I'm showing you guys this is not just to show you how cool they are. We have a whole bunch of different designs, but also to encourage you to follow our socials, to follow Instagram especially, because we posted on our Instagram a kind of a t-shirt field trip. We went to a place where you can make your own shirts. And so we invited anyone that was available or in the area to come out and do that with us. We're definitely going to do it again. So we will try to give you enough notice. Last time we did it in Richardson. They have a great facility, but you come, you pick out your own t-shirt. They have just aisles and aisles of every t-shirt you can imagine. They even have women's shirts, racerbacks, and you can pick out whatever graphics you want. You just build your own t-shirt. But you have to follow the Instagram if you want to be aware of things like that, at Ministry of Skepticism. Each month we focus on a different beacon. These are all of our beacons here on that far banner. You can see the 5 beacons. This month's beacon is agency. That's all the way down at the bottom. Each month we move through a different beacon. So we are all the way at the end of the cycle, and then we will go back to the top for the next month, probably. If you want to follow along, you guys should all have reflection books. We actually have the beacons are all listed on page 9. Before we do that, let's see, I think I have a reflection book here. What I'd like to do is have you turn to page 8. What we're going to do is we're going to dedicate this month's beacon, agency. And you'll see on pages 8 and 9, we have call and response. We're actually just going to read, we'll do this together, we're going to read the last one, which is agency. It begins with agency empowers my existence. I will read that, and then there's a bold part. I'd like for you guys to read the bold part. And so we will do this together to dedicate this month's beacon of agency. Agency empowers my existence. I evolved to have wants and desires. I am motivated by love, curiosity, and creativity. Let it be so. Great. So now we have officially dedicated our beacon. On page 7 is an overview of all the beacons, and it shows you a little more detail because within each beacon, you can see that there are different rows beneath. We have what we call revelations, we have virtues, and we have disciplines. So within the beacon of agency, we are thinking about the revelation that follows from that insight, which is that existence is meaningful. And we think of all these from a naturalistic perspective. I am motivated is the virtue, and I am dispassionate is the discipline. Every beacon has a virtue and a discipline. The virtues tend to follow rather naturally, and the disciplines require a little more effort. And the disciplines especially are inspired by the scientific method and the virtues and the techniques of skepticism. When we talk about being dispassionate, we're not talking about not having passion. Be passionate about the things that you do. What we're talking about is not being consumed by your emotions. Agency in our context is informed by our genetics, our physiology. The things that we have evolved to want and to need, our desires. And so recognizing that helps us to not be blindly following our emotions and our wants and our desires, but we can be dispassionate in our pursuits and follow the evidence, try to maintain objectivity. Your reflection books have not been updated in a while. For the past couple of sanctuaries, we've been reading new reflections. We've been handing out leaflets so you can follow along, but they've not yet made it into the book. Our goal is to have a new, updated version for our 1-year anniversary. We have one more brand new reflection that is inspired by the beacon of agency. It talks about agency, and it reminds us to think about all the invisible influences at work on us. It's called, fittingly, Marionette. And if you guys would like to follow along on your leaflets, you should have a leaflet that says Marionette, and I will read it for you quickly. And hopefully the next time we see it, it will be in our new updated reflection book. But much of who you are was determined without your input and outside of your awareness. You are like a marionette. Your genes, your parents, and your environment all pulling at your strings. Your influences coalesce into something that you call yourself. You experience a persistent sense of identity. You take your agency for granted, blind to the strings that control you. It is not possible to cut the strings, but through awareness and effort, you can break the cycle of mindless performance. Curate your experiences. Expose yourself to culture, art, entertainment, and education. Engage in the mindful pursuit of growth. Tether yourself to better sources. You are the sum of your influences. Choose them wisely. Let it be so. And so we can see how this follows a lot of the themes that we are guided to think about within our framework of beacons. Oh, I totally forgot that I have slides that I could have been doing. Remember we were talking about agency? There you go. There's the beacon. God, and I was just pointing all the way over there, the dumb banner, and I could have... Oh, man. Why did I stay up till 4 in the morning making these dumb slides? Okay, well, now we know. So there you go. That's what I was talking about. All the way on the right, agency. The mission of the Ministry of Skepticism is to provide a reasoned approach to spirituality, meaning, and ethics, inspired by science and skepticism. We exist for people like you, who are curious, who crave a sense of community and meaning and purpose, but who may feel unmoved by or dissatisfied with conventional religions or faith-based claims. We celebrate a naturalistic worldview that is full of awe and wonder. This sentiment is expressed in a passage from the physicist Sean Carroll, a great science communicator. He says, "We are the miracle, we human beings. Not a break the laws of physics kind of miracle, but a miracle in the sense that it is wondrous and amazing how such complex, aware, creative, caring creatures could have arisen in perfect accordance with those laws. Our lives are finite, unpredictable, and immeasurably precious. Our emergence has brought about meaning and mattering into the world." What a beautiful passage. And there is no conflict between a naturalistic worldview and beauty and awe and wonder. We reject the notion of non-overlapping magisteria, the idea that science and religion are separate domains that should remain divided. Rather, we endorse the perspective expressed by the cosmologist and beloved science communicator, Carl Sagan, when he wrote, "The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both." Dang it. Carl Sagan describes science as a candle in the dark. And the Ministry of Skepticism is spreading the light of scientific skepticism through the promotion of reason, critical thinking, and scientific literacy. To read the extended passage from Carl Sagan's book, The Demon-Haunted World, we'd like to call up John Brinkman. You have it?
I have it.
Okay.
Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of our spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined is purely spiritual. So are our emotions in the presence of great art, or music, or literature, or acts of exemplary selfless courage. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both. Sera.
That was lovely. I don't know about you, John, but I thought that went really well. Yeah. She's stingy with those plaudits. But Carl Sagan expressed it perfectly. And Carl Sagan provides a lot of inspiration for what we are doing here. May he rest in peace. We call this a sanctuary because it is a safe space. It's a refuge from the delusions and the madness and the muddled thinking that occupies so much of our headspace. We are constantly inundated with misinformation and disinformation and all kinds of information and spin and often outright lies. Science and skepticism provide a means by which to navigate all of that information meaningfully. And this is a safe space for reason and the rational exploration of all claims. To welcome us into this sanctuary, we'd like to call up Alia Brinkman. Make sure she gets mic'd.
Sanctuary. This is a place of sanctuary. All are welcome here. There are no ideas that are forbidden, no questions that are off limits. Beliefs are personal. Each of us is free to determine how we ascribe value and meaning. In this space, claims are neither accepted nor rejected by decree. We do not offer a fixed set of laws. There is no canon and there are no commandments. We offer patience and fellowship and the tools to guide you in your own pursuit of knowledge. Skepticism is a process, not a position. Believe what you will. What is private and personal is your own business. But for anything that can be measured or quantified, or that you hope to have validated or affirmed, so long as you are willing to follow the evidence in good faith, wherever it may lead, then you are welcome in this space. You will find sanctuary here. Let it be so.
So we should also acknowledge that it's Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And I hope all of you that have the opportunity are able to spend time with or celebrate your fathers this weekend. My fathers are here. And my sister came in so we can celebrate our fathers. And we wanted to give today's Incandescence to a father from our community to speak about the role that we play both as parents and as children, because as we think about agency, we are thinking about the invisible influences, and that is nowhere more evident than in our role as parents and also in our relationship to our parents. They influence us, we influence our children. So to speak about this, we'd like to bring up Luke Sardello.
I need this laptop, not these sheets.
Huh?
I need this laptop, not these sheets.
Had you send it to me. I was reading it a lot.
Good morning. My name is Luke Stardello. I'm usually the quiet guy in the back. Though I've met most of you. When Arlo asked me to present this Incandescence, my initial response was that I didn't consider myself to be an intelligent person. Meaning I don't consider myself to be a very dynamic thinker. My brain is more wired mathematically towards solving problems where there is a definitive solution to every problem. But since Father's Day is tomorrow, he thought it would be interesting to discuss agency from the perspective of having a father and being a father, and the comparison between my own upbringing to how I raised my own daughter. So I said, challenge accepted. It is the sum of all my fears, but I accept your challenge. So first, a quick background on my father. My father's name is Robert Sardello. He came to Dallas in the early 70s to create the psychology department at the University of Dallas, a Catholic institution in Irving that I believe Cassandra was talking about last month as well. He chose the University of Dallas partially because he had lost faith in the church and was looking for inspiration to return to it. There he met Father Don Fisher the following year, and they'd been close friends ever since, up until his passing a couple weeks ago. Father Fisher's passing. They often discussed faith, and more recently participated in a series discussing the heart as not just a physical organ, but also as a critical pathway to spirituality. He eventually left the University of Dallas to co-found the Dallas Institute of Humanities and Culture in 1980, and then left there, moved to Massachusetts to found the School of Spiritual Psychology in 1992. So that's a big part of who I am. Unlike traditional psychology, which often focuses on behavior, cognition, and emotion, spiritual psychology asks deeper questions about meaning, soul, imagination, and dimensions of the human experience. Because of my father's work, I grew up in an environment where questions about purpose and spirituality were not abstract topics, though he never attempted to force those beliefs on me. My father guided me to think for myself and make my own decisions without dictating what those decisions should be. Growing up, I didn't yet have the capacity to critically evaluate those ideas. I accepted much of what I was taught because I trusted my parents. It was never a conscious decision, it was the reality into which I was born. Only much later did I begin to ask myself which beliefs were mine and what beliefs I had inherited, including beliefs taught to me at UD growing up in the Catholic Church. I spent the better part of the first 10 years of my life going to church, and as I became a teenager, I began to question how the Catholic Church challenged my own agency. I was asked to submit to a higher power without asking questions, and I had and still have issues with that. When I first started coming here to Sanctuary, I revisited some of my father's teachings to see if there were any similarities or any common ground. And at first glance, spiritual psychology and skepticism appear to be at odds. Spiritual psychology often asks us to look beyond the material world for meaning, while skepticism encourages us to question claims and demand evidence. Spiritual psychology teaches that there are realities beyond our physical world where skepticism questions whether there is sufficient evidence to support those claims. But they're more similar than they appear, in that both ideas seek to challenge automatic thinking and encourage self-examination and reflection. Which brings me to agency. In the context of skepticism, agency encourages us to examine the forces that shape our beliefs and to consciously decide which of those beliefs we accept as our own. Agency refers not merely to having choices, but to recognizing that choices exist in the first place. Now that I have a daughter of my own, the concept of agency has taken on new importance as I critically evaluate my own beliefs and consider how skeptical thinking can help me understand them while I seek to raise my daughter in the best way that I can. When I look back on my upbringing, I don't see a father who tried to control what I thought. Rather, I see someone who was interested in exploring questions of meaning. His approach then was more hands-off, with guidance taking precedence over dictating. But as a learning skeptic, the question I increasingly ask myself is how much of what I believe is the culmination of evidence and critical questioning, and how much is the result of what I inherited from him. And I think I'm lucky in that I believe he didn't tell me what to think as much as he taught me consciously or subconsciously how to think. And we all face these same questions. We inherit languages, values, customs, assumptions, religious traditions, and cultural expectations. If we are old enough to evaluate these things, they become part of our worldview. And as we get older, the challenge is not to reject everything we've inherited, but become aware of what we've inherited and learn how to evaluate those beliefs critically. If I had been raised by a doctor or a lawyer, would my worldview be any different? Certainly it would be. And they would certainly be different had I grown up in a different country, different culture, or a different religion. That challenges the idea that our beliefs are entirely our own. But it also reveals an important truth about agency, and that agency begins when we recognize how much of ourselves was shaped before we ever made a conscious choice. I'd be remiss if I didn't pause here to mention that I had a bit of a unique upbringing in that not only was I raised by my parents, but was also raised by my best friend's mom. She wasn't a doctor or a lawyer, but she shaped my beliefs and my worldview as much as my own parents did. I spent most of my formative years at their house. She was also a single parent and played the roles of both a mother and a father. So I had the benefit of seeing multiple views from different perspectives. While my father was a reserved person, and most of what I inherited from him was more from what I observed, she was more demonstrative about individual thought. Their approach couldn't have been more different, but they both were seeking to guide rather than dictate. I've then tasked myself to funnel much of that down, consciously or subconsciously, down to my own daughter, while scrutinizing and challenging some of what I inherited from them in the process. It is a never-ending process, but the underlying focus has always been guide versus dictate. Unless, of course, she hasn't turned her homework in on time, and then dictating sometimes is necessary. Like my father, I've not always been the best communicator, and recognizing that over the years, I've tried to improve on that. I tend to assume too much. So the challenge as a parent has always been striking a balance between setting a good example, instilling values, and teaching empathy, while still leaving room for autonomous thought. As parents, my wife and I have strived to teach our daughter to think critically and questioning claims, even from authority, without necessarily rebelling or outright rejecting things she's taught. From a skeptical perspective, the issue is whether any system encourages or discourages independent thought. Any belief system can become dogmatic if it discourages questioning. This realization has changed the way I think about parenting. When I was younger, I assumed that parents passed down their beliefs. Now I think good parents pass down something more powerful, ways of thinking. Every day, my daughter absorbs assumptions about how the world works. She learns not only from what I believe, but how I arrive at those beliefs. Hopefully, I've given her the tools to scrutinize those to come to her own conclusions. My father influenced me whether he intended to or not. The values he held, the questions he asked, and the worldview he embodied became part of my development. Now I find myself in his role and have tried to be more cognizant of my responsibilities. As a parent, I face a dilemma that every parent faces. How do I guide my daughter without reproducing myself? How do I pass along the values I consider important while leaving room for her to think for herself and reach her own conclusions? For me, the answer lies in distinguishing between teaching beliefs and teaching agency. Teaching beliefs means providing answers. Teaching agency means providing the tools to think critically. I can share with her how I feel about spirituality, religion, morality, or politics, but if my goal is to support her agency, the ultimate lesson I can teach her is not what to think, but how to think. Ask questions, demand evidence, accept uncertainty as a fact of life, and be open to revising your opinion if the evidence requires it. That doesn't mean guidance doesn't play a role, it does, but there's a difference between offering a perspective and demanding agreement. A lesson I've learned from my father's influence and my own skeptical mindset is that wonder and skepticism can coexist. You can be curious about life's mysteries and still be open to questioning your assumptions. It's possible to value the search for meaning without insisting that any specific answer is unquestionable. Ultimately, my father's work examined the nature of the soul and the deeper aspects of human experience. My own focus has moved to a different question. How do individuals become the authors of their own lives? Agency doesn't mean freedom from influence. It involves recognizing how our families, cultures, and experiences shape us in deciding what part they play in our lives. As I raise my daughter, I know I will inevitably shape her worldview just as my father shaped mine. The question is not whether I influence her. The question is what I do with that responsibility. My goal is not to tell my daughter exactly what to believe. My goal is to help her develop the skills to explore life's biggest questions for herself. And if I can do that, perhaps I will have passed on agency to her. And if I can succeed at that, then I think I would consider that a parenting win. Thanks for listening, everybody, and happy Father's Day, Arlo, Arthur. Happy Father's Day, everybody else. Yeah.
That was so great, Luke, and what a perfect incandescence for Father's Day. You know, good skeptics always are open to revising their position based on new and better evidence. And I would say that it's probably time for you to revise your own hypothesis about yourself. You are certainly intelligent and capable of dynamic thought. That was really coherent and well presented and well thought out. You know, Luke has, since we've started this, has been really good about reaching out to us. We've had multiple dinners because he always has questions when we come out of sanctuary. He's thinking about the things that we talk about here, and you can see how he is thinking and processing these ideas and applying them in his own life. And that is why we exist, is to spread these ideas and for each of us to take them and incorporate them into our own lives and think our way through them so that we can understand them better, so that we can apply them. So it's really wonderful to hear you share that and talk about your experience and your growth and how these skeptical principles have become meaningful in your own life. And how nice that Kim and Nori came and were able to hear that. Thank you guys. It's really nice to have y'all here. So Celina and LuLu and I attended a conference just last week. It was CSICon's 50th anniversary. That is the Center for Skeptical Inquiry. And they are the leading skeptical organization in the world. And as evidenced by their 50th anniversary, they have been around for a long time. There are multiple chapters throughout the world. And normally these conferences are held in Vegas, but as this was their 50th anniversary, they had it this year in Buffalo, New York, which is right next to their headquarters, which is located about 30 minutes away in Amherst, New York, right across from the State University of New York at Buffalo. I think I got that right. It was Celina's first time to the Skeptic Conference. LuLu, I think it was her third time. I've been many times, definitely double digits. And it was our first time since we've been a part of Ministry of Skepticism. So it was our first time to kind of network and share this idea with other skeptics. Mostly, we've been talking about it here, and we are bringing people to skepticism, kind of like exposing them to these ideas for the first time. It was a different exercise and experience entirely to bring it and share it with people who are already steeped in these ideas. And in fact, it was a little intimidating. We were nervous about how it would be received. Certainly, we didn't want to be rejected. We had our MoS t-shirts. We made multiple so we could wear shirts every day. We had our pins. We brought, do I have one? I think so. Oh, I got one. We had special handouts made. I learned this from my father. You always want to have promotional material. So we handed these out. On one side, it has a quick summary of what MoS is, what we're doing. On the other side, it has an example of one of our reflections and an explanation, because a lot of our shirts featured this new graphic. It says we are the lucky ones, inspired by Richard Dawkins. We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. So it's a provocative graphic, looks cool, and it got attention as it was intended. People actually stopped us and said, "What is this about? Why all the coffins?" But as skeptics, we didn't have to say much more than it's inspired by Richard Dawkins, and they got it immediately. And that was cool. And I'm happy to report that we got really overwhelmingly positive feedback. People understood it and they liked the idea. They liked the approach. So we networked with a lot of interesting and influential people. LuLu got a picture with Dr. Andrea Love, her favorite science communicator on Instagram. LuLu posted it from her account, and Andrea Love reposted it and added her own comment about how cool it was to talk to young women in science. And she followed our account. Lots of the people that we talked to followed MoS, including Debunk the Funk, Dan Wilson. What is his, not a virologist, something like that, but he debunks basically anti-vaxxers, but he is a doctor. He's a professional and an expert in that area. Someone that we have followed for a while, and so it was nice to meet these people personally. Molecular biologist, thank you. And he followed us back. We met Melanie Tracek King, who's a great science communicator and one of our favorite follows. We repost her content a lot because she's really great at explaining skeptical ideas kind of for a new audience. She makes it understandable, easy to access. And so it was nice to be able to see her in person, tell her thank you for your content, we love it, and it really helps what we're trying to do. She followed us back. And she said that she comes to Dallas fairly frequently. Her husband is a musician. He comes here for work. And so they said they make it to Dallas a few times a month. So we are optimistic that we will get them to one of our services, and maybe we will have the opportunity of letting Melanie present at one of our sanctuaries. So that's exciting. We also met with Susan Gerbic, who runs Skeptic Camp and Guerrilla Skepticism. She's a fairly active and prominent member in the skeptical community. She's also going to be here. She's coming in September for a different conference, but she has said she would be willing to come and speak. So keep your eyes out. We will probably have a guest speaker sometime around September. But these are all people now who are aware of what we're doing. We are spreading the light. But they are also capable of giving feedback, educated and welcome feedback from people that we respect and that we think and we know understand our mission. Oh, and I should also mention, I had the great idea of myself of putting a photo from CSICon up here. I was testing you. LuLu said, why don't you put a photo up on the side? I just want to make sure you're paying attention. Perfect, babe. You fell right into my trap. Huh? But that's Sean. So Sean lives in Pennsylvania, and since we were in Buffalo, he made the 4-hour drive, but it's a lot closer than driving to Texas, to meet us. And he spent the whole day with us at the conference. We actually surprised him with a day pass to the conference. So he got to come and listen to all the talks with us. That night, there was a local group that's called Drinking Skeptically. So we went to a local bar. Yes, there is such a thing. There's another national group called Skeptics in the Pub. So these kinds of things exist. And so we hooked up with the local community there. We all went to a bar with Sean, and we had a great time with him. It's really nice to make that personal face-to-face connection with someone who's been so important to what we're trying to do for so long. And as I said, our hearts really go out to Sean this weekend. We know that he's dealing with a loss in his family, and he was pretty beat up over it. So Sean, our thoughts are with you. But it was so great to see you. And he got his shirt. So you can see us there. We're wearing our shirts and our pins. It was really, we had a presence there. Celina, LuLu, and I went a day early to the conference because since it was in Buffalo, they offered a tour of their headquarters. So we took a bus from the hotel, 30 minutes to Amherst, and got a tour of the CFI headquarters. And as Celina said, she's like, I had no idea what to expect. She's like, honestly, I thought it was probably going to be kind of boring. I mean, what does it mean to walk around a headquarters? You think you're going to look at a lot of cubicles. But it exceeded all expectations. Because it's a lot more like a museum than an office. Because in 50 years, they have just been accumulating all these interesting curios from their skeptical investigations. So there's all these weird, allegedly haunted items that they have in cases, and strange contraptions from chiropractors that can adjust auras and energies. I mean, you see all these strange and crazy things from the history of skepticism in their investigations. And they have these massive libraries of every book that's ever been written that's related to science or skepticism, and journals and periodicals and things going back hundreds of years. They pulled out a book from the 18th century, 19th century, and actually let us touch it. They said, 1699. Wow. Oh, I thought you said 1899. Okay. Well, when I thought you said 1899, I moved it up to 19. In my defense. But the point is, it's a really old book, and they let us touch it because the quality of paper back then is so different than what we have now, and it's built to stand the test of time, and it really did feel so solid. So we learned a lot about the history of CFI. And I'm familiar with it somewhat. I've actually written articles about it. I have a blog, Skeptic Tattoos. I'd written an article about the history of skepticism. I'm familiar with the major players. What's wrong?
Skeptic Tattoos.
Skeptic Tattoos. That's the name of my blog. Paul Kurtz, James Randi, Martin Gardner, Ray Hyman, Marcello Truzzi. These are the 5 figures that were at that first CSICon meeting back in 1976. And I've had my picture with Ray Hyman, with James Randi. I've read books by James Randi, countless articles. I've written articles about Martin Gardner. We have talked about him here. But of all these founding figures, the one I'm probably least familiar with is Paul Kurtz, and he is certainly the most consequential. This CFI, this modern skeptical movement, exists in large part because of Paul Kurtz. He's a philosopher. The reason the headquarters are in Buffalo is because he taught at the school across the street. And what I didn't know or didn't fully appreciate about the history of skepticism is that first meeting that they had for the Committee for the Skeptical Investigation of Claims of the Paranormal, CSICon. It was held at a humanist conference, a conference for secular humanism. I believe it was the 30 or 35th conference for secular humanism just to give you an idea of how long that had been around. And so at that conference, Paul Kurtz organized this new meeting about skepticism and gathered James Randi and Ray Hyman and Martin Gardner and the others. The reason it was at this conference is because Paul Kurtz had long since identified as a secular humanist. In fact, he is considered the father of secular humanism. He's been integral to the popularization of secular humanism. And I have to tell you a sidebar to all this because I cannot stop thinking about it. But we have, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but George is a new member. It's his first time here, sitting in the back row there. Hello, welcome, George. He discovered us through the CFI website. On CFI, they list affiliated groups, and we are officially recognized as an affiliated group with CFI. So you can go onto their site, and you can look for groups in your area if you're interested and find groups like us. George did that. He found us. He is here today. So we are part of that network, and welcome. But the reason he found us is especially interesting is because he watched a documentary about Uri Geller, who's a famous psychic and spoonbender. He was the famous foil archenemy of James Randi. James Randi debunked him on national TV, on Johnny Carson. But that sent George down a rabbit hole, and so he started looking into Prometheus Books, which is the publishing company. It was founded by Paul Kurtz. CFI was founded by Paul Kurtz. He discovered Paul Kurtz. He discovered CFI. He looked for affiliates, and he found us. Now here we are talking about Paul Kurtz, talking about CFI. It's all related, and hopefully validating your choice to come here. We're going to coffee afterwards. I hope you'll come. We can talk more about it. So I've always known there was a relationship between secular humanism and skepticism, but I never knew how far back it went or how deep. So we say often that we are not an atheist organization, and I think that that is important to clarify and to let people know. Belief in God is personal. Martin Gardner, one of the founding figures of modern skepticism, believed in God. To paraphrase the 18th century French mathematician Pierre Simon Laplace, who told Napoleon, "We have no need for the God hypothesis. But if you get something out of a personal relationship with God, as Martin Gardner did, that's your business. We have no opinion on non-falsifiable claims. But it is worth clarifying that as skeptics, we don't stake ourselves to positions. So there's one perspective of looking at this God issue where it's important to clarify that we are not an atheist organization because we don't want to put up any barriers. For people that have belief, it's important and personal to them, we welcome that. We respect that. We just want to show you the tools for approaching claims critically. It's up to you how you want to apply those, what claims you want to apply them to. Do that in your own time, but familiarize yourself with the tools. But there's another angle that's not just geared toward the believer, but geared toward the skeptic or the atheist. Because as skeptics, for me personally, I've never felt comfortable identifying as an atheist. I feel much more comfortable identifying as a skeptic. Because atheism is about the conclusion. It suggests that it's an important part of your identity. It's not important to me that God exists or does not exist. My skepticism is merely a consequence of my skepticism, following the evidence. I see a lack of evidence. That could change tomorrow. Maybe there will be great evidence for God, and I will change my position accordingly. That is what it means to be a skeptic. So we do not tie ourselves to positions. We are not an atheist organization. We are skeptics. So now, having said that, at the Skeptic Conference, this was not as big of an issue because when you're surrounded already by a lot of people who share mostly your views, you don't have to talk about whether or not God exists or how you feel about it or how you get around that. Their concerns were different. We heard from a lot of skeptics, well, there are a lot of other organizations, or there are other organizations that are doing what you guys are doing. Secular humanism in particular, which has been doing it before any of us were even born. Before the modern skeptical movement even began 50 years ago, secular humanism was around. And the founder of modern skepticism, Paul Kurtz no less, is the one who created the current philosophy, the most popular philosophy of secular humanism. And so when you look up their values, yeah, they overlap almost in every way with what we are teaching here. They emphasize naturalism, science, reason, ethics grounded in human flourishing, a rejection of supernaturalism, and personal responsibility. Not a rejection of personal responsibility, they encourage personal responsibility. But if you go to their website, because after talking to skeptics over the weekend at the conference, I went back. I did a lot of research before we started this. I had to do my competitive analysis. I wanted to know who was out there. I wanted to make sure that we weren't just rehashing familiar ground. And I really believe we are filling a niche that is unaddressed. And when I looked up the secular humanism website, when you get there, at the top of the page, it doesn't say secular humanism. It says Free Inquiry. That is the name of their magazine. And the website has a bunch of articles that are published online or in their publication Free Inquiry. There's no mention of services, community gatherings. It is purely a philosophical enterprise, more or less. You can get ordained and minister weddings and occasions like that, but they don't have regular services, they don't have rituals, they're not doing what we are doing. It is philosophical. And when we first conceive of this, our goal was to get to a physical service as quickly as possible. We did not want it just to be a philosophical exercise that only lived in blogs and articles. We wanted it to be a living thing that you could practice. The two other groups that came up most often were Unitarian Universalism. I'm sure many of you have heard of that. It's an extremely progressive strain of, it began with kind of a progressive brand of Christianity. It was two progressive denominations that kind of came together. Over the years, it has moved further and further away, where it's almost unrecognizable as a Christian organization. It embraces all faiths, including non-believers. But because of its origins from Christian denominations, you can still see it in, they're in churches, in their dress, in their presentation, in the structure of their services, and even in their teachings. A lot of them still derive from Christian teachings, although they are, and I should say probably they're most notable for being really a social justice organization. They are really concerned with identity politics and embracing all people, which is a noble cause, but again, a little different than what we are doing here. Our emphasis is on skeptical values and principles, and we think that compassionate values derive from that, but we don't put the identity politics first. And then the third group is Sunday Assembly. Has anybody ever heard of Sunday Assembly? This is the most recent one. It was founded in 2013 by two British comedians. And their idea was they had the similar instinct to what we have. They wanted to create a space and community that captured kind of the spirit of what churches do, the uplift of a church, but without any supernatural beliefs. And so at a typical Sunday Assembly, they do popular sing-alongs, they'll have a guest speaker, they share personal stories, and they have community activities and socializing, a lot like what we're doing. But their talks and their speakers can be on anything kind of related to happiness and living a good life. They have talks on astronomy and happiness and psychology, volunteering, history, science. But so in this way, their Sunday assemblies take on more of kind of like a TEDx feel and a little less like a religious ceremony. And all of these groups, in their sensitivity to being seen as religious, kind of avoid a lot of the trappings of religious organizations. And so by design, they don't do things like the rituals or the reflections or the call and response, a lot of the things that we have deliberately incorporated into our service. And so then a common critique of some of these other organizations is, well, what are they gathering around. Christian churches gather around Christianity. Jewish congregations around Judaism, Buddhists around Buddhism. What is Sunday assembly gathering around? What is their core message? And something like life is amazing, right? Let's celebrate life. Which is beautiful and nice, but it really lacks specificity. It is hard to build a life kind of around that principle. And so without any kind of coherent philosophical core or meaningful traditions or structure, and in their attempts to distinguish themselves from religion, or in many cases to actively avoid all things that make religion successful, they leave this gap that we are filling. So we are creating a shared language and symbols and rituals and ceremonies and a framework for moral guidance. And all these things are successful and have been proven to be successful over millennia in conventional religions. And it's not because they're manipulative. That would be taking too cynical of a view of religion. It's because we are social beings who evolved to want these things. We crave a sense of identity and belonging. And so the Ministry of Skepticism exists to fill that gap left by religions. We're filling the gap left by religions that we can't relate to and the secular groups that have failed to relate to us. That was kind of like a sermon, like an illumination. Just so you guys know, I added time to this in our run show, and I made my actual illumination is much shorter. Just so you know, balance it out. So we have one more short prayer, and then we're going to take a break. So we're almost there. And in fact, we're going to bring up Augustine. Now we're going to read a reflection on gratitude. Because we have so much to be grateful for as we're here with our families, as we're celebrating Father's Day this weekend. Our fathers, not least of all, among all the things that we have to be grateful for. So to guide us in this reflection, we'll call up Augustine, whose father is here. Hello, Luis. Happy Father's Day.
So gratitude. We have so much to be grateful for. The very fact that we're here, that any of us should exist, despite the extraordinary odds against it, it is truly a miracle. And the fact that we are here in this space together, sharing this experience of communion and fellowship, is a gift worth cherishing. So let us take a moment to be thoughtful and reflect upon this blessing, to enjoy the fellowship of friends and family and neighbors as we come together to celebrate the light of reason, the virtues of skepticism, and the miracle of existence. Let it be so. Let it be so.
Okay, Josie, so we made it to the 10-minute break. Now would be a great time to get coffee, use the restroom. In the spirit of gratitude and sharing experiences, we encourage you to talk to your neighbors. George is here. We've got some new faces here. Introduce yourself, say hello, welcome them. Also, I'd like to point out, we do have a book here with merch. We've got Demon Haunted World, the Carl Sagan book that we keep referencing. We've got those for sale. They have our special Ministry of Skepticism stamp on the inside, so they are sealed. They're special here. We've got pins just like this. We've got coffee mugs. You're welcome to use the coffee mugs here because we've got coffee. If you don't want to purchase one, you just use it and just leave it behind. We've got a black tray underneath the table. You can leave your used mugs. But if you do want one, you can leave a donation. You can Venmo or Zelle or put it in the donation box. We request $20 for any of these items, the pin, the coffee mug, the book. That is merely a suggestion. If you are a student, if that doesn't fit in your budget, leave less. If you would love to have a pin and support MoS like we're doing, you want to go out in your school or go out in public and wear your pin because you're so proud of it, we want you to have the pin. If you want to engage with the skeptical ideas, you want to take a book but you can't afford it, we want you to take the book. That's the most important thing. Leave whatever you can. If you can leave $1, if you can leave $5, that's great. If you can't leave anything, no big deal. And if you can leave more, we'll take it. So check out that stuff. And also don't forget, we're trying to get addresses and your names. So if you have a moment, you can go over there and leave your addresses and your names. We'll see you guys back in 10 minutes. Every sanctuary is an opportunity to come together and enjoy the fellowship of friends, family, and neighbors. Augustine led us in the reflection about gratitude, and we have so much to be grateful for. But we should also always be mindful of the other side of the coin. Because each of our fates is tied to a random roll of the dice. And accordingly, we should be mindful to balance our gratitude with compassion. There are some among us who are dealing with their own struggles, challenges, misfortunes, grief. As we sit here today, we've talked about Sean, whose uncle passed unexpectedly. Sera, who opened this ceremony with the lighting of the lanterns, she had to leave immediately after. They are putting their cat down tomorrow. 21-year-old cat, that is a good life. That's a good cat, but she wanted to go and be with her cat today for good reason. Ian's mother had a stroke recently. John and John, their sister, just lost her husband. So we are constantly reminded to be compassionate, of the need for empathy. So to help guide us in a reflection on compassion, I'd like to call up Sera. And this reflection is on page 11 of your reflection books. It's compassion.
Even as we recount the things that we have to be grateful for, and there are many, let us also observe how much of our fate is determined by circumstances outside of our control. There's not one among us who deserves credit for choosing their genes or their parents or where or when they were born. And neither is there one among us who deserves blame for their burdens or their afflictions or their shortcomings. It is a fact of nature that our fate is neither a reward nor a punishment. No one deserves praise or blame for their being. Let us view the world honestly and see each other truly, and recognize that all are deserving of compassion and grace. Let it be so.
Thank you for that, Sera. And let us all remember to put this into practice, offer support, compassion to our neighbors here. And as we've talked about in previous sanctuaries, when we ever feel like we need support or comfort or compassion, it's okay to ask for it. The revelation that follows within the beacon of agency is that life is meaningful. And when we say this, we don't mean it in some vague secular sense, like life is what you make of it, or life is good. As Luke so eloquently described, the beacon of agency gives us the opportunity to reflect upon the source of our wants and our desires and our emotions and our motivations. We evolved to have needs. We want to survive. We are genetically predisposed to care about our kin and our familial relationships. And as our social sphere has grown as a species to include extended families and neighbors and tribes and civilizations and entire species, so too has our capacity for compassion and empathy grown with it. There is power in knowing that our meaning is not derived from some arbitrary external force. It is quite literally baked into our DNA. We have a special reflection on meaning. Earlier we read the Marionette. The past few sanctuaries we've been adding reflections. We won't read every reflection at every sanctuary. We are getting to the point where we can start reserving them as they are appropriate for the beacons that we are focusing on. So absolutely, now is the right time to think about meaning. So to read the reflection on meaning, this is on page 12 of your reflection books, we'd like to call up Israel.
We are how the universe thinks about itself. This is an extraordinary and extraordinarily improbable event. For the entire history of the universe, some 14 billion years, and spanning the breadth of the entire cosmos, over 2 trillion galaxies, we are the only example, so far as we know, of the universe becoming self-aware. The universe is dark and indifferent. But every question we ask, every emotion we express, and every act we commit with purpose and intent shines a light brighter than any star. Meaning is illuminated only through awareness, measured against the vastness of the cosmos. The odds of your existence are vanishingly small. Yet here you are, made from the same stuff found in the planets and the stars, contemplating the meaning of existence, a miracle of nature, if ever there was one. Your existence is a miracle. You are a miracle. Let it be so.
So we talked about the history of the modern skeptical movement. We all went to the, LuLu, Celina, and I went to the conference. We've talked a lot about atheism and other secular movements. But we haven't talked specifically about what skepticism is, and that is at the heart of what we are doing here. It's why we're here. So in every sanctuary, we include a portion where we talk about skepticism. So to guide us in a presentation on what is skepticism, I'd like to call up my daughter, LuLu. She is a master's student studying cognitive neuroscience at the University of Texas, Dallas. I am just saying that she has qualifications beyond just being my daughter. She certainly is benefiting from nepotism here, but she also has the skills and the credentials. She's far more qualified to be up here than I am. So I'm happy to turn it over to the future leader of these sanctuaries, LuLu Eisenberg.
Well, you need.
Oh.
So the conference left me feeling reignited and emboldened in my pursuit of skepticism. There's something so special about being in that environment, and I hope that all of you can experience it one day. And for real, y'all should really come next year. It's in Philly. But there's nothing quite like being around other skeptics, people who care about what the evidence shows and form their conclusions based on that. Even if it may be uncomfortable or go against public consensus or even put them at odds with the people around them. An interesting way to answer the question of what is skepticism is by asking, who are skeptics? Looking around the conference, I noticed a pattern in who these people are. They're the ones trying to keep us truly informed about our health, our money, our decisions. They're the ones pushing back against misinformation, even when it would be easier to stay quiet. And they are the ones exposing things that take advantage of people's fear, grief, and trust. For some, it's even more serious than that. I met a man named Dr. Leo Igwe, hopefully I pronounced that okay, who helps people in other countries in places where accusations of witchcraft still lead to violence, real violence. People are publicly tortured, attacked, and even murdered in cold blood. But this skeptic puts his life on the line to try to stop that. In situations like this, skepticism is not abstract or theoretical. Superstitious and pseudoscientific beliefs have real consequences, and skeptics are actively fighting to minimize the harm that those beliefs cause. I couldn't stop looking around the room. I felt so inspired and at ease sitting in a room full of scientists, educators, and communicators, all people dedicated to understanding reality as carefully and accurately as possible, even when it comes with backlash. Like Dr. Peter Hotez, who has received endless death threats for creating and distributing vaccines that have saved many, many lives. Or like Dr. Michael Mann, who has had similar experiences in documenting and sharing the reality of climate change. And by the way, those are the leading scientists and experts in those fields, vaccines and climate change, respectively. Or like Dr. Andrea Love, fighting against the organic lobbying industry, providing people with accurate information about food, pesticides, GMOs, and their safety. Another thing that stood out to me was the manner in which people thought. There was a spirit of openness that is hard to find elsewhere. There you can question things, push back, admit you don't know something. And instead of shutting down or getting heated, those things foster even greater conversations. No one expects you to have all the answers. What matters is that you're trying to get closer to them. Again, this is very rare. Oftentimes, beliefs are formed through feeling, things that feel intuitive, like common sense, or things that fit with what we already believe. But skepticism interrupts that seemingly effortless process by asking us to pause and identify what actually supports this, and is there any evidence to support my assertions? This can be very difficult to do. It takes work to question something that feels obvious and to sit with uncertainty instead of immediately resolving it. And it takes a willingness to be wrong. And that's not always rewarded. Sometimes it makes you an outcast, a little bit out of step with the people around you. It might make you a little quieter in certain conversations, or maybe hesitant to jump in when everyone else seems sure. Makes me think about the Ouija board conversations from last week. But that part can feel isolating. But being at that conference made something clear. There are a lot of people choosing to think this way, this different way, choosing to follow the evidence in good faith wherever it may lead, even when it's inconvenient, unpopular, and when it would be easier not to. So what is skepticism? It's not just questioning things, it's what happens after. It's the decision to let evidence guide your beliefs rather than stopping at what feels right. It's not perfect and it's not always comfortable, but it's an attempt, an honest attempt to understand things a little more clearly, to avoid fooling ourselves, and to deal with reality as it actually is. Thanks.
Thank you, LuLu. That was wonderful. Always Alma's favorite part of the service, and mine too, honestly. And Stephen's. And you reminded me when you talked about our trip to CSICon, when I was talking about all the interesting and influential people that we met in skepticism, I did forget to mention the Starstuff Society in Philly, because you mentioned that next year it's going to be in Philadelphia. And so we are planning on being there. And as LuLu says, absolutely, anybody else that's interested, you should come. Certainly now that we have already sown the seeds of the Ministry of Skepticism, the bigger our presence can be next year, the better, right? We can spread the message. And we are fully intending to have either, or maybe it's and, or we will have a service there. We'll find a location like we do here to have an actual MoS service in Philly around the conference. or at the very least, we think that we will be making like a presentation because they invite speakers. We can apply. We're going to apply early, and we think there's a good chance that we will be able to present actually at the conference. So we encourage anyone that's interested to come, especially if you're a student, because you get a really significant discount if you're a student to attend. But so we met a group called Starstuff Society. We followed them already from our account, and they followed us back. But we had not met them until we got out there. They are based in Philadelphia, and they are enthusiastic about what we are doing, and the feeling is mutual. We are enthusiastic about what they are doing. They work with artists, local artists, to host parody conferences. They have a quantum holistic a conference where all the artists create, they take on the persona of different vendors, and they submit kind of their idea of what they're going to be vending there. And at the actual CSICon, they were one of the presenters that we hope to be next year. So they presented a 15-minute, gave a 15-minute presentation about what they're doing. They showed a video from one of their conferences, and it was really funny, really well done. Had a guy selling urine, thank you. Allegedly, but he was serving lemonade. But he was saying, don't drink why drink your own urine when you can drink mine? And it was a part of an MLM. So his uncle was, the urine was going on down. They were all getting a cut. But so I think they had like a cat massage thing there. So all kinds of bizarre, but it's all parody, and it's a great way of kind of like really highlighting the things that we talk about within skepticism. But we have boots on the ground in Philly, which is going to be the next location. And they happen to be allies who already are in the business of finding locations, hosting events. So if we need a location, they can help us find one. So that was just, I neglected to address that earlier, so thanks for reminding me. I'm going to do an illumination quickly. It's Father's Day weekend with agency. There's been a lot of conversation about parenting and the relationships between parents and their children and back and forth, and what that, how that informs the way we think about agency. Parenting is a great way to consider this because it paints a stark picture of the power of influence and the role it plays in all of our lives. We see all the threads from the beacon of agency, how it comes into play when we talk about parenting. It's a really relatable way to think about these concepts. As parents, we get to think about our influence over our children and all the responsibility that comes with that. And as children, we also get to think about the power of influence over us. And so I have a few quick stories that help to illustrate these concepts. But one is the MoS origin story, because we talked about this a lot at CSICon, because people said, well, how did y'all come up with this, or what was the inspiration? And there really is an inspiration story. We've talked about it before. How many of you are familiar with the story of Dorothy and her son Jonah? Right. So this goes back to our very first sanctuary when we talked about the inspiration. But Dorothy is one of our members. She is a professor in economics at UTD. Her ex-husband also is a researcher in the same field. Dorothy is from Belgium. Her husband is from Canada. And I'm telling you all these things to paint the picture of a fairly recognizable, liberal, progressive, non-religious family. And they raised their children. They have two children who are now kind of young teenagers, 14 and 16 in that ballpark. They raised them in this kind of non-religious home. And Dorothy one day was doing the laundry, and to her surprise, she found the Jesus idol. Maybe now this will remind some of you guys. Huh? Do you have a Jesus? Yep, just like that. Now I know what Dorothy's going through. This is to discover your own child. But you can imagine how this would be disconcerting or alarming to a parent, and it goes both ways. Whatever your beliefs are, it feels kind of important that your children have those beliefs. At least that's sort of how we look at it initially. Luke really challenged that conventional way of thinking about the way that we pass on our beliefs. But certainly as a family, a progressive family, non-believers, it can feel really disorienting when your child discovers organized religion, in this case Christianity. And so when she asked her son about it, what is this about? Like, it feels like as a parent, have we not done a good enough job? Did we not raise you to be good? Are the values we've raised you with not good enough? And he said, well, what's the big deal if Christianity makes me want to be a better person? I feel like it helps. And it's hard to argue with that. But so that's what got us thinking about this. When Dorothy shared this story with us, I started thinking, well, why don't we have something for the non-religious homes, for educators like Dorothy, for people like us, that have long since left organized religion, don't necessarily believe in faith-based claims or gods, but we're not providing our children with any kind of structure so that they can learn those kinds of values, other than doing what Luke did. We sort of nebulously are talking to our kids, or hope by example we're sharing these values. It's what my parents did with me. It's what I did with LuLu, more or less. I mean, we are all it's what Dorothy and her husband did. We're all kind of rolling the dice and just hoping that they pick up these values. But we lack the support of a community, of structured lessons to make these ideas transmissible and accessible. And the support of an outside source, because your voice as a parent can become tired. Your children don't always hear it. So churches have the ministers, they have friend groups, they have social media influencers that are all supporting these messages, and we have none of it. This is the thing that is missing from all those other secular groups, is this kind of structure and framework to help us pass down these values and these ideas, not just through our communities, but to our children and to their children. Engagement, 100%. So another story I'll tell you guys quickly that we picked up at the conference. Celina and I, at one of the the social hours after all the conferences at the bar, we were talking to the skeptic. I said I've been to conferences in the double digits. He's been to over 20. A lifelong skeptic, devoted to the cause. He has 2 adult children. He's older than I am even. And so we talked about raising our kids. And he said, well, yeah, I tried to tell them, don't just, he said, much like Luke, much like us, much like Dorothy, we don't tell our kids what to believe. We just say, whatever you do believe, just try to make sure you have good evidence for it, right? Something like that. But then let them do it on their own, figure it out on their own. Well, so not surprisingly, his adult kids have rejected organized religion. His daughter is a Reiki healer, and his son is an anti-vaxxer who believes in Norse gods. This is what happens. This is the roll of the dice, though, that I'm talking about. When you leave your kids, you just sort of hope that it all comes together. There's no telling what ideas they will gravitate toward. And this goes back to the idea when we talked about atheism is different than skepticism. Knowing that someone is an atheist, that they don't believe in God, doesn't tell you anything about how they arrive at their conclusions. You can be an atheist and believe in Reiki or crystals, exactly, or dubious wellness claims. Atheism is a conclusion. It tells you nothing about the process you use to get there. That's why we are teaching skepticism. And that's where we are trying to provide Luke and Cassandra and Alia and parents with the tools and the network and the community to support and help these ideas stick. I'm going to tell you a bonus story. I could tell you about LuLu because I keep mentioning LuLu. I've called her my Exhibit A, right? Because when she is an example, I tried to raise her with skeptical values, not just the absence of religion. I actually tried to fill that void with something meaningful and useful. The ability to navigate to navigate claims critically. But still, it was kind of a crapshoot. There was no organized structure. It really was just coming from me. I happened to win the genetic lottery. She was a bright, motivated kid. She cared about these ideas. They resonated with her. When her mother was making claims about, what is that called? Applied kinesiology. So she's in a a grocery store in the supplements aisle, testing homeopathic remedies because maybe Lotus had an earache or something, but she's testing the concept is that your body knows what it needs. And so if it resists, it'll tell you that it doesn't want it. If it gives way easily, yeah, your body wants that. And so when LuLu in 5th grade or something told me about this, as a skeptic, I'm like, whoa. But I told her, I didn't say that's BS. I probably said, what do you think about that? And she said, well, I don't know. I said, well, do you want to test it? She's like, yeah. So we asked Lisa, my ex-wife, her mother, who to her credit said, yeah, sure, let's test it. So channeling James Randi and all these investigations that I've seen, these skeptical investigations, we built a pretty good experimental design, I must say, double-blinded. We got opaque film canisters. They were black and sealed. We took 10 of them and put clearly noxious, toxic things like rat poison and Coca-Cola and things that we would think your body would reject. And then in the other, we put like innocuous things, broccoli, water, whatever. And we let Lisa test all these things using her applied kinesiology, first with the lids off. So she knew it was what was in every one, to test it and make sure it was working. So she did, and she's like, yeah, this works, I can do it. We asked her, what do you think your success rate will be? We asked her to guess. She said, probably 90% to 100%, I think I'll be able to get them. Great. So we sealed them all up. The person who sealed them and marked them in the envelopes didn't know which canister was what. That's part of double blinding. We ran the test. Lisa tested them all. And what do you think the results were? 50%, not better than chance. Exactly what you would expect with chance. Lisa was surprised by the results, but LuLu learned an important lesson. She learned a couple of important lessons, that there are ways to test these claims. You don't just have to take your parents' word for it or any authority's word for it. And so almost as much as the idea of understanding the power of science, she also learned the perils of blind obedience to authority. So yeah, I will take some credit for that. I taught her the value of skepticism and science. But again, I was lucky that this scenario came up. What if LuLu had never asked me about this thing that her mom was claiming? And we never did that. The entire trajectory of the story could be totally different. And again, that is what we were all faced with. We were all just hoping for a lucky roll of the dice that our kids will turn out right. My parents are here. My mom, my dad, Essie, Maria's not here, but I was raised by great parents. I am so grateful for that. I know that I'm lucky. But if not for accidentally discovering a magazine called Skeptic Magazine, Victor, you're a skater. Do you know that I designed the first aggressive skate? You know what it was called? See, are there any other skaters here? It was called the Majestic 12. Yeah. Oh, Luis, I should have asked you. You're older. Oh, and Adam. I actually had them. He had the Majestic 12. Well, do you know where that name came from? Not at all. I think I wasn't following. The Majestic 12 is the name of an alleged top secret organization allegedly formed by Harry Truman to investigate the recovery of alien aircraft and aliens. I was all in on that stuff. I mean, I couldn't get enough of it. I remember in elementary school when we went to the school library to check out books, I got Bermuda Triangle, Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot. I mean, if not for accidentally discovering Skeptic Magazine because I thought I was buying a UFO magazine, I would be the conspiracy theorist today. It doesn't matter how good your parents are. Without these tools, without exposure to skepticism, you have no idea where you'll end up. That's why we're building this, to give us all the resources to raise our kids to be able to navigate this information age meaningfully. All right, be the light, spread the light, protect the light. We have some closing announcements, and then we will do our final ceremony, iron and glass. So, okay. Our next sanctuary is July 18th. That's going to be back at Harrington Library. We're actually making our way back to Plano after a long stint and run through Dallas. All of you northern suburbites, you'll be happy to know that we're going back to Plano, to Harrington Public Library. That's July 18th. And also make a note of this. I've mentioned several times that we have the 1-year anniversary coming up. That date is already set. It's August 15th. Please put that in your calendars because that's going to be a big one for us and we're going to do something special. So those are the next couple of sanctuaries, July 18th and August 15th. The post-sanctuary brunch today for coffee, we're going to Turbo Coffee, our favorite spot. That's on Coit Road in Plano. If any of you don't know where that is, you can look it up. The Turbo Coffee on Coit, or you can ask Celina or any of us that have been there before. We have a constellation coming up. Constellation programming complements what we do in Sanctuary. It's less formal, whereas this is kind of modeled after a religious ceremony. The constellations are social. We talk. We engage deeper with these ideas. In this case, we'll be talking about agency, but we have interesting and provocative prompts to guide the conversation. They're really fun and a great way to go deeper into these kind of skeptical concepts. So, and those are always at Turbo Coffee, and those are on Thursday evenings. The date of the next constellation is July 2nd. If you enjoyed this, please keep coming back. It means so much to see you guys who returned. Spread the word, spread the light. If you know someone, and I guarantee you do, guys, we can't emphasize this enough. We've already identified the Unitarian Universalist, the secular humanism, the Sunday Assembly. Nobody is doing this. And it's right here in Dallas. People want this. You've discovered it. Don't keep it to yourself. Please spread the word, spread the light, invite someone. And if you're watching on the live stream, do the same. Spread the light. Let people know. The August date is August 15th. So our 1-year anniversary is officially August 16th, which is a Sunday. So our 1-year anniversary will follow the Saturday before that, August 15th. We'd like to, so we opened the service with the lighting of the lanterns, a ceremonial ritual. But in the spirit of skepticism, we'd like to undo kind of all the metaphor and the ritual and make sure that we don't mistake the rituals for the truth. We always should be mindful to ground ourselves in reality and skepticism. So to do that, we're going to bring up Celina, and she will guide us through the iron and glass ceremony.
We turn our attention once again to the lantern, an encasement of iron and glass that protects the candle burning within. The candle itself is a symbol representing the light of knowledge and reason. The light must be protected. Protect the light. Carry the lanterns. Now take up your lanterns and carry them out into the world. Hold them high and let their radiant light shine against the encroaching darkness of pseudoscience, superstition, and unreason. Science is a candle in the dark. The lantern is a beacon of rationality. Spread the light. Religion is a powerful tool, and we employ it earnestly in the service of our skeptical message. We acknowledge the role that narrative and ritual play in making our teachings more palatable and our lessons more transmissible. Even as our spirits are raised in transcendence, our feet remain grounded in reality. We draw a bright line between the tales that we tell ourselves and the truth. Blow out the candles. The candle carries no meaning outside of our metaphors. The lantern is just iron and glass, after all. The only source of meaning, so far as we know, is you and your self-awareness, the most extraordinary creation in all of the cosmos. You are the source of reason. You are the source of knowledge. You are how the universe thinks about itself. Feed your curiosity. Sharpen your skeptical tools. Spread the message of skepticism and critical thinking. You are the light. Be the light. Spread the light. Protect the light. Repeat together. Be the light. Spread the light. Protect the light. Let it be so.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Happy Father's Day, fathers. And for those of you going to Turbo Coffee, we will see you there. Turbo Coffee on Coit Road, kind of